The mysterious, the macabre, the out of this world. The following are real people. They have real stories, and they've had real encounters. Here tonight on Newsworthy, two words and two question marks.
He's alive! Have you checked the children? Get out!
From a childhood marked by intuitive awakenings, a near death experience that unlocked profound energetic gifts, Xavier Roman has emerged as today's most quietly transformative spiritual healers. His journey began at age 5, but it was a life altering moment in 2010 when he flatlined during an emergency surgery and witnessed his own operation that deepened his connection to divine energy and reshaped his purpose. Today, Xavier channels this powerful force to help people facing physical, emotional, and mental health challenges. Whether through in person sessions or remote healing, his work has touched the lives across the globe, restoring hope, easing chronic pain, and guiding individuals back to wellness when all else seemed lost. With thousands of testimonials and a growing online presence, Xavier is no longer keeping his gift in the shadows. He's stepping forward to share his truth that healing is possible, energy is real, and every soul deserves a chance to reconnect with its own power. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Xavier Roman on Encounters. Xavier, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve.
Man, I appreciate you coming in. I hope I covered everything okay on your intro there because you're quite the talent, dude. Tell us
That
a little
sounds
bit about
good.
yourself.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a talent because nothing that like it's nothing that I had to learn. It just was. Of course, like you said, at 5 years old, it just came, and that's how it's been ever since. Nothing that I've had to learn. So
Well, that's pretty
just
impressive. Now, your story at 5, I listened to your story on your website. You can go to xavierroman.com and check out a bunch of testimonials, a great bunch of videos there. Uh, I like how when you were talking about the situation at age 5, you were like, "Wait, did I do that?" Because we've all had those moments where we go to the supermarket at age 5 and we try to use the force to open the doors. You
yeah,
actually
right.
had that, so tell the audience about that experience.
Yeah, so of course that was my first time. I remember I was like probably about 4 blocks from my house, and I was across the street from the park, and I remember seeing a mom and a son, would appear to be a mom and a son. They were both crying on the corner outside in public, and the child, he was holding the mom's, but he's right around her waist, holding her waist, and she was crying, and I could see the kid crying, and I knew that he couldn't have been that far away, within age from me. um, and so right away I got a little scared, because they were crying, and right away I was like, man, oh my god, like what's going on? Oh my god, that looks bad, that looks scary, or all those things that a 5-year-old would think of. And immediately I was like, man, I wish I could help them. Like, man, I wish I could help them. I really wish I could help them. And then I just felt like something, come over me and said, you could help them. And then just, okay, like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and, close my eyes, because I just felt something to close my eyes. And I closed my eyes, I put my head down, and I felt this white light come around my body. And then I wanted that light to direct right towards them. How it came or what gave me that instruction to go ahead and do that. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it just kept on going through real nice and quick. And it went to them, and then I seen them, with a white light around them, and then I was done, and then I opened my eyes and I looked across the street, and about after a couple of seconds, 2 to 3 seconds, the mom stopped crying. The kid let go of the mom's her waist, and he backed off. They're both looking like to their left and right, like, what's that? Then the kid turned around fully, and he's just looking like, hey, well, what happened? And I was looking at them like, yeah, what happened? And then and and I'm just waiting for them to start crying again or to do something. And you know, they looked at me real quick, but they weren't staring at me, but they looked at me real quick because I was staring at them. And they just stopped. And then I was like, whoa, was that me? Like, did I do that? Like, no. Oh my God, I think that was me. I really think that, like, wow. Because in my mind, I'm thinking it happened just when I said it, and it happened as soon as I opened my eyes, and everything happened how it happened. And, like, I think I did that. And then immediately I'm like, wait a minute. And I started looking at my hands, like, wow, wait, do I got superpowers? Wait, I mean, like, I think, 5-year-old, would think that, even adults to this day, if they did something that they've never done, that was like out of the ordinary, you would think that. And I really did it. And I was like, okay, yeah, let me see, what is this flying thing? So I started moving my back and stuff like that, look at my hands, seeing if my muscles are getting bigger, all this stuff that, a 5-year-old would think. And I'm like, wow, like, wow. And then I just walked home. I just left and I walked home because I didn't want them to, you know, maybe say something to me or anything like that, even though nothing happened. But I just walked home, and I'm thinking to myself, like, oh my God, like, okay, now how can I do this flying thing? Like, that, maybe that should kick in, like, on the way home. Like, something else is going to happen on the way home. But nothing happened, though. And then as I'm on my way home, I'm still like, okay, who can I tell? Okay, can I tell my family? Should I tell my friends? Should I tell my mom? Like, who should I tell? Who should I tell? And then every time, when I got around those questions that I was asking, I was like, nope, can't tell them. Nope, can't tell them. Nope, no, can't tell them. Like, can't tell them. And I just, like, I was probably about half a block away from my house, and then I just decided, no, I'm not going to tell nobody. No, no, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think this. They're going to think that. And, and as a 5-year-old, I was, worried about what people thought. And so I didn't say nothing. I just kept it to myself. But that whole day and the evening, I just kept on thinking, like, wow, like, what if I did that? And then there was thoughts. I was like, maybe I didn't do that. Maybe it was just like, um, you know, just coincidence. Maybe it was something like that. And then as time went on, as my mom, she wanted to go, she had to go to a doctor's appointment. I'd be like, hey, can I go? Can I go? And she thought that was kind of weird. The look that she gave me, like, I thought you hated doctors, And at the time I did. And she was like, yeah, okay, come on, let's go. And so I would go to the doctor with her, and I'm looking for people who showed like they were hurt or there was something bothering them or they're holding themselves or this and that. That's what I was looking for. And then, so I would always find one. So at that time, I found one. And this person, they were like hurled over, like they were holding their stomach and this and that. And then I would just sit back. Okay, let me go ahead and give this a shot. Let me give this a shot. And then I look over at my mom, see if she's looking at me. Okay, she's not looking at me. She's reading something. Okay, cool. And then I would do the same thing. And then I felt that white light ready to come around me. And then boom, I direct it right towards that person. And I would open my eyes. And then it was the same thing. After a couple seconds, they would just like look around and like as if something went on, and they would wouldn't be holding themselves no more. Like that for that instance, that person was holding their stomach, and they just stopped. They just stopped, and I looked at him like, wow, look at that. Look at that. He's not holding his stomach no more. He's not holding his stomach no more. I said,
That's
man,
awesome.
yeah. And I said, wow. I said, I think this is me. I said, I think this is me. Even though I'm imagining this and close my eyes and I feel this stuff and I feel so good when this white light goes around me and then when it beams out to that person and so forth. I was like, wow, like, no, like, this is me. Like, wow, I did that. Like, but maybe he just felt better. Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe he just felt better. Like, and as time went on, I kept on going to appointments, or if I seen somebody who was, they had the look or the their bodies as if they were in pain somewhere. I would still do that to people. And look at them and just close my eyes and put my head down, this and that, and then kept on seeing people get better, kept on
That's
seeing them
awesome.
get, yeah. Um, there would be times when I would go to doctor's appointments and I would do that to people, and sometimes they would get up and go back to the desk, and I'm over there listening, like, let me see what they're gonna say. Let me see. Say, you know what, I'm gonna take off right now. I got this appointment, and I won't be able to say, hey, I thought you really need to see a doctor. I thought you were really, this. Yeah, but you know what? It's okay. This and that. And I was like, wow, he feels better. Wow, she feels better. Wow, like that was cool. I heard him tell the person at the desk that, they're okay. They're really not, feeling so bad. They
So
could wait.
how long did you do that before, like, how many, like, from age 5 to like when? Did you just keep doing it all the way
I just
through
kept
your
on doing it.
adolescence? That's awesome.
I just kept doing it, but then as I got to high school, then I backed off. I backed off, but then every now and then, I would do that. But like for the most part, I wasn't looking for people in that sense. I wasn't looking for people to so I could help them out, unless I was just like in some situation, like, ooh man, ooh that lady looks bad, this and that. Then I would go ahead and I would do the same thing over and over. Until this one time in high school, I was just telling somebody the story. I was at a bus stop. I was getting off of some practice. I want to say it might have been basketball practice from high school. And I was changing buses. And no, actually, that day I didn't go to practice. That wasn't practice. But I was coming across, going to the bus stop, and I seen this guy. He had a cane. He was an older gentleman, and I seen him as he was walking around the little bus shelter where they sit and wait for the bus. And he had a real bad limp and so forth. And then I was just like, man, should I do this? Should I do this? Man, I hope this doesn't backfire. And that guy doesn't say nothing. Why don't I ask him? So I sat next to him. I said, hey, I seen you had a real bad limp there. You okay? He's just like, oh, my leg, my knees, real bad pain and so forth. It's been like that for a while. And then I told the guy, I says, hey, I think I could help you out. He's like, what? He's like, look at me like, kid, what are you talking about? You got a book bag on, like, keep going. And so, I was like, yeah, I think I can help you out, man. I said, look, I don't even got to touch you. I said, I'm just going to sit next to you. I'm going to put my head down, um, and I'm going to go ahead and give you some good feelings, and it'll help. That's what I call it. That's what I called it, and I'll call it. I told the guy. He said, like some kind of prayer, and I just agreed with him. I was just like, yeah, yeah. I said, but I'm not going to talk. He said, well, what kind of prayer is that? I says, well, you don't have to. I'm just trying to help you out. I don't got to push you or touch you or, hit your knee or legs or anything like that.
I'm gonna rob you when you close your eyes.
Right. And so then he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah. He says, it, can't hurt. You're not going to touch me. This, that. I said, no. I'm just going to sit next to you. I said, you ready? I says, when I open my eyes, then you'll know I'm done. Okay. And then I just put my head down and I did the same thing over And then when I opened them up, I was like, I said, okay, how's that feel? He's like, he just started looking at his knees, started touching it and rubbing it and so forth. And I was like, how's it feel? How's your pain now? How's your pain now? He's like, I don't have no pain. And I was like, yeah, really? It says, hey, why don't you get up and just take a couple of steps and see how it feels while you're walking. And then he got up, he took a couple of steps, and he took more and more and more. And then, he's hitting his leg with his hand, like, come on, like, I know you're in here. He's looking for his pain, I could tell. And he's like, he's trying to move his knee in different angles, like he's like finding that pain. And then he came back, and he had a little faster walk. And then after walking around and around trying to find it, he came back. He's like, "Hey, man," he's like, "that worked." He's like, "That shit, that worked." He's like, "What was that?" He's, "What did you do?" And then I was like, "Well," I says, "it's just something that I had since I was little. This comes through me, and then it's like a healing thing, and it goes to the people or the person who I wanted to go to." I says, "And hey, I'm glad you're better now." He's like, "No, no, no, no." He's like, "No, no, no, no." He says, I've never felt this and so forth." He says, this isn't normal." He says, "Who's your father? Who's your mother? What's your address? I need your phone number." I says, "No, no, no." I said, "Hold on, man." I said, "Look, I says, I don't, I don't want to go that far. Like, hey, I'm just glad you're better, and that's it. But I don't want to involve my mom and so forth.
So,
And
Xavier, was that the first time you actually had contact with the person you helped?
actually, that was, yeah,
That's pretty
that was the
awesome.
first time I told somebody what I was gonna do. That was the
That's
first
awesome.
time. Yeah,
You
yeah,
said you said that he was looking for his pain. Don't you feel like when people have chronic issues, I work at a nonprofit as part of my daily life, and I deal with a lot of the elderly, and so many times they become their issue. How's your day today? Well, instead of explaining what they're happy or they're thankful for, it goes directly to whatever issue they're having at the moment.
yeah.
That's such. I hope and I pray and I try very hard to monitor the word. I think words are very powerful. I think that it says it all throughout the Bible that words are you can talk things into existence. But I pray that I never become that issue. I always want to be separate of it. I just think. Anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just.
No, no, no. It's okay. It's okay. But you're right. And I have found that like when you're talking to them about helping them out, even before you're talking to them about helping them out, because if you're talking to them about helping them out, then they'll tell you everything's wrong. But people, they attach that what's wrong with them as opposed to, hey, how's your day going? Oh, it's going all right, but I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this, and so
Right.
forth, so forth. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even ask this guy or this lady if she needed help, or what I do, and so forth. And so,
Well, that's the whole thing that I'm like when I come in contact with these folks and they're sharing their medical history. I'm like, wait, that's not HIPAA. I'm not. You're protected under HIPAA laws. I don't need to know
right, right,
that.
yeah, yeah,
So when you've said that you close your eyes and you feel the white light come over you. Are you in your mind with your eyes closed and in your peace there? Are you just focusing? Are you silently praying? Are you asking for the God or a greater power to come through you, or is it just happen?
just happens. Yeah,
Wow,
just
that's impressive.
happens. It's just like my intention is, if I'm by somebody or if I'm speaking with somebody online or something like that, my intention is to help them out already, or see what I could do for them already. So everything's already in motion, and so once I go ahead and close my eyes, then it's like, within like seconds, you feel like the little white light just getting bigger and bigger and just going around me, and then going to where the person is or so forth, or what's wrong with them in that specific spot or so forth. Yeah, that's how it goes.
That,
Oh, and not to go ahead and cut in, but I forgot to tell you at the end of the bus stop guy, the guy that I met at the bus stop that I helped out, he wanted the phone number and the address and so forth. I just ran to the other bus stop. I didn't run, but I just walked away. I got no. I don't got no time. I gotta go. Really, you were taking the bus here. I gotta go. Just cut him off. Just
wow.
left. Yeah, but
So,
I'm sorry.
no, you're good. I have a couple questions about that actually. So you mentioned earlier that you preferred all the way up until your encounter at in 2010 that you only worked with strangers. You didn't tell anybody that you know. Was that out of fear of uh, they're going to poke fun at you, they're going to try to tear you down, they're going to not understand?
Um, I my take on that was just that I just didn't want to hear nothing. That's all. I just didn't want to hear nothing. I didn't want to explain nothing. You want the help or not, But even with that, if you want the help or not, it still comes with what are you doing? How are you doing that? What is this about? Blah 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 blah. This and that. This that. At that time,
Right.
and I just didn't want to answer no questions. I didn't want to answer to nobody no questions.
That makes good sense. And I've often mentioned her on the program. In fact, I hope to have her on the program very soon. But I have a great aunt had she had a teacher or a mentor, her life would be so different because she's so attuned to certain things, certain, not like what you do, because I feel like what you do, what comes through you is straight from the light. But she's attuned to a lot of other stuff too. And people who have those abilities really, not only as I get older, I understand and respect it, but I can understand why you wouldn't want to share that with everybody because it freaks people out sometimes if you have an ability like that.
It does. It really does. Matter of fact, when I was back then at the 2010 period, I was married. I didn't even tell my wife, but didn't
Wow.
even no introduction, nothing about childhood as far as with that. Even though she knew me as as we were both children. Yeah, nothing,
Wow.
nothing. Yeah, I didn't say
So
nothing.
you've said that your healing gift awakened, really awakened, after a near death experience. Can you take us into that moment and what really shifted in you afterward?
Um, so do you want me to take you to uh, before pre-surgery or after?
Let's go pre surgery and then we'll talk after. Let's
Okay.
set the table. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was feeling real bad this one day, and my stomach was just getting worse and worse. My lower stomach area, and I was just like, "Whoa, what is this?" It was hurting so bad. I mean, I was trying everything so quick. Like, man, what? I've never felt this. Like, what's going on? And then I thought to myself, since it was going on so long, I was like, man, like this is so bad that I'm gonna have to go to the hospital. And so at the time, I called my wife at the time, and I said, "Hey, listen, um, I'm having these real bad pains. This is like not a stomach ache. This is like not like something I ate or this and that. This is for real. Like this has been going on for a while now. I tried everything." And I says, "When you get here," I says, "we're gonna have to go to the hospital." She said, "What? What are you talking about?" Blah, 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 blah. I said, "Just hurry up and come back, and let's go. I don't want to talk." And so then I immediately thought, after I'm waiting here, like, wow, you know what? I just had this conversation with this person, and with two people, and I told them, we said, "Hey, if you died, what would be your last meal? Like, what would you like your last meal to be?" And I was like, "Man, I think you guys know what my last meal would be. It would be wings and pizza." I says, and I'll go in peace. And then my immediate thought was like, "Oh my god, I ate wings and pizza 2 days in a row." I said, "I ate wings and pizza 2 days in a row. Ah, No, it can't be
Well,
that bad.
Xavier, I know you live in Chicago, but I gotta say I'm a New York pizza fan. I like it thin and just I can't I don't like Chicago pizza, man. It's like a pie. It's like whoo.
Really? Okay, okay. Yeah, I'm a diehard pizza fan. Um, and so after we go to the hospital, like, hey, it's your appendix, and so forth. Like, oh, okay, all right, cool. Wait, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this right away because it's the bursting, this and that. Okay, cool. Yeah, whatever. Let's just get this over with. Had a surgery. They came out of it. I stood there for I think 2 days, and then I was going home. Went home. Um, they gave me some antibiotics to go ahead and take, and I took them. And then by like days, it was day 5 or day 7. So I don't know if it was 10 days or 7 days of antibiotics. But like before I was getting ready to run out, by like the 5th day or 7th day, I remember my body getting real cold, and it was like 103 outside. And so I'm under the covers, like pulling the covers out of the bags and stuff like that. Say, hey, we're gonna need this now. For some reason I'm cold. Then I'm getting real hot, and I'm like, oh my god, like the air conditioner's on. Like, man, why is my body so hot? And then going back to real cold, and then finally, we called that doctor. Who we seen at the hospital for my appendix. Like, hey, you better bring him in. Like, did he finish the antibiotics? Like, I think he's got like another day or a couple of days left. So okay, he's probably I think he's having an infection. You got to come in right now. Like now, like leave now or however you could get here. So I was like, okay, cool. And so we went back, and they ran their tests and this and that and so forth. They're like, hey, listen, you're having an infection, unfortunately, from the surgery. Like, oh man, like, all right, cool. Let me, hey, hook me up. Let's get rid of this thing. Give me an IV and let's get going. They're like, no, it's more than that. Like, from these tests that we did, it's going up. It's making its way from the surgery spot, all the way up, and it's like right around going by your chest. If it gets to your heart or around there, then there's nothing else we could do. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean there's nothing else you could do? You mean that you have to give me another med? Like, no, there's nothing else we could do. That will be it. You will pass, not maybe. I'm like, what? Like, and I'm looking at my wife at the time, like, I thought we were coming in just to get like some antibiotics, or something like that. And she's looking at me like, "What?" She's looking at the doctor like, "Wait, what are you talking about? Like, like we just came to, maybe you give him something else, or you could get the IV and then it'll work faster." Like, no, that's what it is. And I'm like, okay, so what are we doing? Like, well, we're gonna have to go in there and we're gonna have to open you up and get that all out. And that'll be that. And I'm like, all right, I don't have a choice. Like, here, but we'll go
No.
here, right? They're like, here, so we're gonna connect you with this IV, and then between the hours of this and that, and maybe it'll do something, but we really think it won't. And then we'll schedule you at this time, and then we'll go ahead and have to do this because this will be an emergency. I'm like, oh my god, like, all right, no, you got to do it. I have no choice. And they give you the papers, like, hey, this could happen from surgery. This could happen from surgery. This. And I'm like, hey, the lady didn't say nothing about this. I mean, the doctor. Like, oh, okay, like, all right, cool. Well, we're gonna do it anyway. So I remember being wheeled in, and if you ever had a surgery, they say, okay, you're about to go out. You count to 3, and you'll be out by then. I just remember 1. I was about to say 2, and I was just gone. And then a while after that, I can't count like seconds or minutes. I remember being outside my body, looking at them perform, the surgery, and I just had my arms crossed, and I'm looking like I'm just observing. No, no questions, no judgment, no nothing. I'm just observing, what's going on. And then I was like, and then I looked at the face. I was like, hey, that's me. I was like, wow, that's me. And then I seen him get the scalpel, and he cut from my belly button down, and then boom, this stuff just popped out of once he cut, almost like a biscuits. You ever take the wrapping
Yeah,
off the
yeah.
biscuit? So it was just like that, poof, and then the blood and this like
Oh,
pus looking stuff just goes all over his stuff. And he had one of those plastic masks that you probably seen people wear. Yeah, one of those. So
thank
it goes over
goodness.
there. Right, and I remember him swearing. He's like, "Holy, this and that." And so yeah, so he did that, and then not too long uh, after that, they had the screen thing, the your heart monitor rate
Right,
machine.
right.
So then it went boom, and then guess that was the flat line. And then they started panicking and moving around. Well, they weren't really panicking. They looked like they were handling themselves, but now they're moving fast. Go get this. We need this. We need this. Blah, blah, blah. I seen that defibrillator thing and so forth and so forth. And then boom. After that, then I just left. And then I was what I know was the other side. And then I'm walking through this tunnel. Um, it was like a tunnel before a tunnel, and this tunnel was like, if you ever seen Wizard of Oz.
Hmm.
So it was all gold bricks, and there was trees. They were going just like that. Trees is like a cave of trees. It's all beautiful, real nice. And I started running, and then I started jumping, and I felt real good. And then I came to the end of that, and then there's that white light right there. And I seen the white light, and I seen some shadows, of people, not dark shadows, just like figures, light figures.
Right.
And then boom, I was there. I was there on that other side. And then I just looked around, and I just like, wow, I felt back at home. I felt real good. I felt back at home, and everything was perfect. Everything, everything you can look at, the grass is perfect. I mean, everything was just perfect. Like wherever you looked at, it was just perfect, almost like a I won't say cartoon, but like how they make it in movies when they try to show you something that's like real peaceful and gentle and easy. That's how that was. And then I seen some people that passed away. I seen my grandmother and another old friend of mine from grammar school. Um, we I started asking him questions and so forth. He's like, "Hey, how do you like it?" And this and that. It's like, wow, is this real? Like, doing one of those types of things. And I remember him laughing. I was like, man, you always had the best laugh, man. You had the funniest laugh. I was telling him that, like, man, your laugh makes people laugh because you laugh, this and that. And then I seen a bunch of other things, just to cut it short. And then I spoke with my grandmother one time. And then at the end, I was talking to her again, and she's like, hey, in Spanish they say mijo. She's like, hey, mijo, do you want to stay? And then I looked at her like I didn't know how to answer that, because there's a good part of me that I wanted to stay.
Sure.
Because
Absolutely.
yeah, because you're like at home, you're back at home, and then after a while, I was like, I'm gonna go back. I said I got some things I want to do, some real big things that I want to do, and definitely not finish. I says so I'm gonna go back, but I'll be back. And she smiled at me. She's like, I know you are. We all come back. And then I started laughing, like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do got to come back eventually. And she said, oh, you will. She's like, oh, you will. She was laughing. And then I gave her a kiss and hug. And I said, I'll be back. And then, boom, I'm in the post-op room. And then I remember the nurse sitting on my right hand side towards the end of the bed, sitting right there. And I started like looking around, like, you get that grogginess from the surgery and stuff like that. Oh my God! Like wow! And then she got up. She came over. She said, "Hey, Mr. Roman," and she said, "Hey, whatever you do," she said, "don't touch that stomach area right here." She says, "They had to open you up, and they didn't sew it up, as they usually do. What's going to happen is that it's going to from the bottom, it's going to heal and go on up. So there's no stitches. There's only a dressing over it. That's how it's going to heal. It's going to go from the bottom and then it's going to go up. So whatever you do, do not touch your stomach area. Like even if you want to itch or something like that." She's like, "Don't do it." And she started showing me the morphine. She said, "Hey, this is going to go off this many minutes. But if you want to, after this many minutes, you could push it if you wanted to come a little earlier." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good." And then she touched me. She's like, "Wow, I'm so glad, Miss Rome, that you're okay." She's like, "We almost lost you, but Doc and them, they brought you back." I was like, "What?" Like, they did what? She's like, "Yeah, they brought you back. We almost lost you." And, like, she's like, "Man, I'm so glad for you." Like, and then boom, I snapped out of, whatever meds they give you when you're trying to
All too
snap out
well.
of. Yeah, you're right. So boom, I snapped out of it. My heart rate and the monitor went, ding, 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 because my heart was, racing so fast. And she's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" I was like, "Oh my God." I says, "It was real." She's like, "What was real?" I says, "If you're telling me that," I says, I did pass. I did go to the other side and I did talk with this and talk with them. And I seen this and I seen that and I seen that. And, I was like, "Oh my gosh," she's, you got to relax. You got to relax. And I was like, she's like, "Oh my God, you look like you're fighting through the meds and stuff like that." I was like, like this is real, like this is real. Oh my God, this and that. And she's like, she got me to finally relax and calm down. I was like, oh my God, I had to push pain meds a little bit faster because I fought through the meds, they put you to sleep and so forth. I was trying to come over, and then she's like, "You know what? I've been here for this many years. It seemed like a long time. I don't know, 20 something years and so forth." She said, "And I'm getting ready to retire. And I've heard of other people in the hospital that are nurses like myself that have experienced this with their patients." She says, just a couple." She says, "But I never had a patient, do that. Like what you did. You went over, and this and that." She's like, "But I've never had that." She's like, like, "Wow, like, and now I got you, and you're my patient right now until they come and get you, and so forth." She's like, "Oh man," she's like, "You think you could tell me some more stuff about that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but," I says, "Yeah, I just need more oxygen and so forth." I says, like, I said, "I just, I need to catch my breath." She's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." She said, "We don't have to talk about it right now unless you want to, and this and that." But eventually, I settled down, and she's like, "Hey, you know what? Can I come upstairs with you in your room to visit you? I got more questions. I'm very religious and so forth, and I just want to know. There's some questions that I got that you probably, maybe you brought it over. I don't know, and so forth." And she's like, "But I'm not gonna come up, and I can't be your nurse." She says, I'm gonna come up to be a visitor." She's like, "Yeah, do I get, if it's okay with you. If not, then yeah, I understand you're going through a lot, and this will be a while." And then I was like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, whatever, that's fine, no problem." And sure enough, she came up and she asked a ton of questions, and I told her what I felt, and how stuff was coming through, to whatever question she had. And yeah, that was it. That was it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So I have questions. Not necessarily about that because I feel comfortable enough to know that when that happens, I'm okay with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so one of the questions I do have though is how do you describe like the energy you work with? Does it feel divine, ancestral,
Yes.
cosmic, or is
Yeah.
it something else entirely?
Yeah. It feels divine because it's so peaceful. When I do
Okay.
it, I feel so peaceful. One of the common questions people always ask me, like, "Hey, like, you shouldn't be trying to help these people that you don't know," and so forth. I've heard that before. That because you're going to carry over their energy, and this that, like, doesn't it drain you, this that? And I always say, like, no. After I do it, I actually feel better than how I felt, even if I felt good than before I started. I said, I feel so strong that I've never tried it. I said, but I feel like I could probably go outside and grab a bumper and just lift it. I says, I've never tried. I don't want to hurt my back, but
Right.
I says, but I really feel like really good and strong. So like if I'm doing this at like 2 in the morning to help somebody out, or if I'm going to a hospital to go and help somebody out, I got this great sense of energy, and I feel so good. And yeah, yeah, and at
So,
peace.
have you ever encountered a case that challenged you, or even your abilities, or even your beliefs about your healing? Or if you did,
Um,
what did you learn
um,
anything from it?
Let me see. Challenges. Sometimes if I'm not able to help somebody, that's always it's I wouldn't say it's annoying, but I'm like, what is going on? I'm a little disappointed and a little upset. Like, oh my god, like, how could this not? There's one person in particular. I remember a few years back. This one lady, she had tinnitus. I guess where they hear the sound
Right.
in their thing, and I tried to help her out, and it just wouldn't work. And she was okay. She was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't think it'd work anyway. This and that. And I'm like, "What?" Like, I was like, I didn't say nothing, but I just said like, "Ah, lady, you gotta want this. You gotta want this too. And so forth. Just like when you do your prayers, you really want God to hear you and so forth." I says, you gotta want that too. But I didn't
Not
tell her
only do
nothing.
you have to want it, you have to visualize it already being done. It says
Yes,
it
yeah.
pretty plain in the book. That's the way it has to work.
Yeah, you got to think. You got to think from the end. You got to think from the end. And
So
yeah, she's one of those people.
yeah, I had when I did home health. I've done a little bit of everything. I'm currently a realtor in my real life
Okay.
and podcaster, but I used to do home health, and you would see all kinds of folk. And I remember, when I would go in for home oxygen and stuff of that nature, you would either they'd be excited that you were there because that means they could go do more stuff, or they were depressed that you were there because they were still on oxygen. And the saddest time I ever been was I went to this one lady's house, and obviously I can't say her name, but um, uh, she had dealt with repeated bouts of lung cancer. And I got there, and all of her equipment and everything was stacked neatly in the corner. And I'm like, Mrs. We'll say Smith, Miss Smith, what are you doing here? What's all this in the corner? She goes, Steve, I'm just tired of fighting. I was like, well, I mean, what do you want me to do? What do she goes, why don't you just come over here and pray with me for a little while? And that's all she wanted. And we did. I picked up all her equipment. It was the last time I ever seen her. But, I would say it'd be frustrating for you to encounter the people that God has a different plan for. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
that becomes a frustration on your count, but maybe it shouldn't be, because just because God gives you a gift doesn't mean that you can heal everybody, especially once He's got other arrangements for already.
yeah,
Just a thought.
yeah, yeah. But it does. But you're right, and I have thought about that before. But it's still like, oh my, how could I not help? How could And I know it's not me. I've always known that hey, this is
Yeah.
not me. Like, it's not that I'm not doing something or this and that. It's just that I want it so bad for the other person, other party, that if if something doesn't happen, then I'm not happy. I'm upset.
Well, that speaks to your
Uh,
heart, Xavier.
yeah. I would say the worst out of all of them is like if I see someone, and I encountered this not too long ago, and every now and then I do. if I see someone put a post, let's pretend it's like on Facebook, and someone put a post like, "Oh, my poor baby, um, they have cancer, they got 1 week left, and this and that, and so forth." I'll shoot them a message. "Hey, my name is Xavier. Blah 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 blah. This is what I do. Hey, I read your posts and so forth. I don't know you. You don't know me. Hey, so here, look at my videos, look at my stuff, and this and that. Um, hey, I'd be open to taking the time out to coming driving to you. Even though you're 45 minutes away or whatever, driving to you and trying to help out your child, just to give it a shot. Like, hey, you got nothing to lose. I don't need to touch your child or anything like that. But, you could be right there next to me." I says, I just just read the story, and it looked bad, and I want to go ahead and see if I could help. You don't have to give me nothing. As a matter of fact, I won't take nothing. What do you say? And the responses that I would get back, and I guess it's part of the ego, it steps in and so forth and allows you to feel like that. We're like, "No, we're just gonna let God handle it." But wait, you wrote in your post that this is the last week. What I mean, I understand the whole God thing, and then it expands a little bit. I'm like, well, who do you think sent me? Like, how do you think I got this?
Right?
I was like, come on, like, this is your baby. Your child's 1, your child's 3, and so forth. This is just, let's give it a try. You got nothing to lose. I mean nothing, and everything to possibly gain. Like, like, hey, look, I see the pictures, and man, that poor baby. Like, so let me give it a shot. I says, I've done things in just as bad situations, or I'm able to help out people in the ICUs and at the emergency rooms. When people are supposed to take this direction, but then they end up taking direction. I says I says, for me, in my mind, it's never over. It's never over. I says, and you can't have that mentality, like, oh, we're just gonna let it, like, come on,
Right.
like, so those are the things that frustrate me, and get me, like, to that point and so forth, and bit upsetting.
So I got a couple more questions so we can wrap up. I've been kept you way longer than I told you I was
Oh,
going
that's
to.
okay. I knew it wasn't going to go. I knew it wasn't going to go to the time you said.
Yeah. So tell me, how do you respond to skeptics and how they, when it comes to the energy and the, I've interviewed enough people about how energy affects our lives to know that there is something to it. But there are people out there that don't believe it. How do you respond to those folks, to your
Um,
legitimacy?
yeah, yeah, no, I mean, like, I think they got every right to, feel like that until, like, something happens to them, until I'm able to help out them or one of their loved ones or friends and so forth. I mean, it's totally understandable. I think, for a person to go ahead and say, "No, that doesn't work. Oh, that's crazy." I remember I just had somebody, someone just send me a message. They were talking about something, and I was in favor of the troops and so forth. Coming on to different cities and so forth. And then someone made a little comment that I guess they thought they would try to get under my skin. Hey, you should. What did he say? He says you should use your magical healing hands to go ahead and stop all the crime. And I'm like, that's the best,
Right.
And I'm
Jeez.
like, okay. I says, well, I'm hoping the troops come in, and so forth. That was it. I didn't want to get
Right.
into it with that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a question. In the Far East, in Asia, in many of the island nations, in India, holistic medicine is as important and is viewed as important and as real as medical medicine. I guess is the best way of putting that. But in America, that's not the case. We have been, and I want to say this word as nicely as I can. We've been very much brainwashed that there's only one type of medicine.
Yes.
How do you feel like at some point in the future, and regardless of how people feel about him, RFK is really trying to rein in some of the crazy stuff that happens in medicine with the food and as an example, we eat things in America that no other country on the planet will allow their people to eat.
They're banned, right? They're
Yeah.
banned. That's how
So,
bad they
so
are.
exactly. So kudos to him for doing that. But do you ever see a place where Western medicine and spiritual medicine, holistic medicine can be more of a tag team partner? Or are we doomed to it to be this either or type deal?
At least here in the West, I think we're doomed to it because the money it rules over everything and so
Yeah.
forth. Just like RFK, what he's going through right now, and he's
Right.
dispelling all these old notions of this vaccine works, is this. I don't want to get started in that, but like he's he has all this proof, and all these studies and so forth, like, and they're just trying to shoot down studies. Like, how are you going to shoot down quite a few studies that they're doing right now and so forth that they come up with, but they're fighting to go ahead and keep that money rolling, and they're fighting over billions and billions of dollars, and he's doing his job. I think he's doing his
I
job, and then
I
some.
agree. I
Yeah.
100% agree with you. You know, anytime you make a French fry that has 19 ingredients,
Right.
something's not right.
Yeah.
Um, have you ever? Oh, I got two more important questions I really want to get an answer to before I let you go. Have you ever received messages or visions while you were healing somebody that like shocked you, that surprised you, or an
Yeah.
outcome that was
Yes.
more than something you even anticipated?
Definitely. Definitely. And sometimes I'll get that before we start.
Oh, really?
Yeah, before we start, and I'll look at the person just like I'm looking at you, like, because if I do stuff online, I just need to see the person's eyes, and then I'm like, oh, okay, here we go, and then I'll say, okay, so what's wrong, and so forth, and then they'll tell me what's wrong, and then I'm like, wow, could this be this? And then I'll go ahead and I'll help them out, and then we'll be finished. How do you feel? Oh yeah, I felt great. I felt this. Now I feel like this and this and that, this and this and that. And then I ask him, hey, did you do this medical thing? Yeah. And I just gotta be like, oh no, like, oh man, like, and then I'll say, hey, I think it's because you did this, and so forth. You might want to go ahead and do this test and do this. I'm sure your doctor has never ordered that and so forth. Do this because you got this going on, and it's from this area right here in your chest that this and that and so forth. You think so? I says, hey, it's free. Go to your doctor. Just tell them. Now they're probably going to push away from that kind of test, but you demand you get that kind of test and tell me and check out to see what that says right there. So
Wow.
yeah, that does happen. Yeah, that does happen.
So, final question for you tonight, Xavier, because I really want to take the time to invite you back on whenever you want to come back on. I've
Sure.
absolutely enjoyed our conversation tonight.
Me too.
Um, what do you feel is your soul's mission in this lifetime? Like you got to come back from perfection um, in a situation that many people don't. Um, how do you what do you feel like your how do you want people to remember what you're doing now that you have become public with your gifts?
Well, I don't, to be honest, I don't really get into the how I want people to remember me by. Um, I've learned that that's when the ego takes place, and
True fact.
that wants it, not you. Even though it's part of you, but that part of you is peace. So like, really, the peace doesn't really want. I want to be remembered for this. I want to be remembered for this and that. If anything, I would like my son to see what I do, and look at the lives that have been impacted, and then maybe he'll figure something out. As far as what he could do and so
Right.
forth. But yeah, I don't look for the you know what people think and so forth of me and so forth. And, yeah, I really don't get involved with that.
So, Roman, tell people, or Xavier, tell people where they can find you, what they need to do if they want to reach out to you and to experience your services. Take a few
Yep.
minutes just to talk, promote yourself.
Okay. Well, you can look me up on my website, xavierroman.com. That's XAVIERROMAN. R's are two R's back to back. You could check out some videos on there. You could go on our social media tabs are below, and so if you want to ever get on any of the social media tabs and check out some more things, that's fine too. And you could also even on our website if you want to book a session. It's only $25, and I used to do it for free, but I found out the hard way that I get overwhelmed so much just with time trying to put this person in, put that person in, put this person in, and then people don't show up. They miss the time slot, so I'm withholding my time to go ahead and help and so forth and so forth. So I let people go ahead and bring a little something to the table, so then make sure you're there and so forth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes good
Yep.
sense.
Yep.
And to be honest, all this social media and internet and the equipment, none of that's cheap.
Yeah.
To be honest, especially if
Yeah.
you're going to do a really good job.
Yeah.
Xavier, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate everything, Steve.
Guys, this episode has been brought to you by our wonderful sponsors, Ed Block at USA Mortgage. If you are in the mood for or in the need of a home mortgage, please reach out to Ed. And Smoking Gun Jerky out of Lincoln, Nebraska. Be sure they have over 50 different types of the high quality jerky for you to order and peruse. Use the code Cryptid10 for an awesome discount on that. And Jerry, if you can't see the light,
Be the light.